The pen is already in your hand. You don't remember picking it up. The recruiter across the desk is watching you the way people watch a building that might be on fire. The clock on the wall reads 2:17 p.m. on a Wednesday. Nothing about this moment feels like history. That's the first lie. 3 weeks later, you are on a bus. Not a plane, not a ceremony. A bus with windows that don't open all the way, and 41 other men who all made the same decision for different reasons. Nobody talks about the reasons. Nobody talks at all. The guy 2 rows back stares at the floor for 6 hours straight. You understand him completely. Naval Station Great Lakes, November. The cold comes off Lake Michigan like a punishment. Your hair is gone before you've said 10 words to anyone. Your name is next at you are now a service number. You will answer to it before you remember it. Petty Officer Kellerman does not shout. That's what surprises you. You expected noise. What you get instead is silence, delivered at close range, with eye contact that doesn't move. It is worse than noise. Noise you can absorb. Silence you have to sit inside. Week 1, you make the bed, you remake the bed, you remake it again. Your hands learn a precision your mind hasn't caught up to yet. That gap between what your hands know and what your brain understands is the gap you will spend the next 38 years closing. Week 3, a classroom. A lieutenant commander named Petroyan walks in, sets nothing on the podium, and looks at the room for a long moment before he speaks. He says one thing. Most of you will not make it to a cockpit. The ones who do will spend years deciding they deserve to be there. Start deciding now. He doesn't repeat it. He moves on. You don't write it down. You don't need to. By graduation, you have lost 11 pounds and found something you cannot name yet. You stop waiting for permission to move. You start moving and trust the order will follow. That is not discipline. Discipline is the word from the outside. From the inside, it feels like something else entirely. You've learned the first truth. Wanting it gets you to the door. What you find on the other side of the door is the real question. Pensacola smells like salt and jet fuel. You will learn to tell them apart. It takes about 3 days. Officer candidate school. Aviation Preflight Indoctrination, 10 weeks of aerodynamics, physiology, navigation theory, and water survival. The textbooks are the size of bricks. The tests do not grade on effort. Nobody here cares how hard you studied. They care what you retained when the pressure is high enough that retaining anything feels impossible. There is a candidate named Delacroix. He finishes every exam first, every single one. Pen down, arms crossed, waiting. You finish every exam correct. There is a difference. You don't say that out loud. You file it. Week 3, the Hilo Dunker. The pool smells like chlorine. You are upside down. The cabin has stopped rotating, but your body hasn't received that information yet. Everything is dark and cold and moving in directions that don't correspond to anything you were taught. This is on purpose. You have 4 seconds to find the exit window by touch alone. 4 seconds underwater, inverted in a seat harness in the dark. First attempt. Your hand goes to the harness too early. Instinct. Wrong. You reset on the surface, breathing hard, trying not to show it. Second attempt, clean exit. Third attempt, eyes closed. You find the window before you look for it. Some candidates don't make it past the first attempt. They're removed. Not because they failed, because the job cannot wait for them to be ready. Week 6, altitude chamber, simulated 25,000 feet. Oxygen masks removed. You are told to write your name and count backward from 100. Simple tasks. Impossible tasks. The letters drift, the numbers lose their order. You wake up with the mask back on your face and look down at the paper. Your name is misspelled. You didn't notice writing it. That moment is carved into something permanent. At altitude, your brain lies to you with complete confidence. It does not announce the lie, it simply presents it as fact. The only defense is to have built the correct response so deep into your nervous system that it runs without your permission. You pass API. Orders arrive. Primary flight training. You are going to fly. You've learned the second truth. Speed without direction is just noise. In the air, noise kills. She doesn't say good luck. She never said good luck to anyone. Lieutenant Commander Yasheli. Compact, precise, Georgian-American, 4,200 flight hours, and a specific kind of patience that looks exactly like impatience until you understand the difference. She doesn't waste words. She doesn't waste seconds. She treats both the same way she treats fuel. You carry only what the mission requires. NAS, Whiting Field, Milton, Florida. The aircraft is a T-6B Texan II, single engine, tandem cockpit, turboprop trainer. It is not fast. It is not forgiving. It is exactly the right machine to find out what you are made of before anyone hands you something faster. First flight. Every instrument demands attention at the same moment. Your hands move 2 steps behind your brain, and your brain moves 2 steps behind the aircraft. You are not flying. You are being carried by something you don't yet understand. 3 weeks in, she steps out of the rear cockpit, sets her helmet bag on the tarmac, looks at you once. Your aircraft. She walks away, doesn't look back. The seat behind you is empty. The radio is yours. The sky ahead of you is the same sky it always was. Nothing has changed, except that every decision in the next 20 minutes belongs entirely to you. You climb. You fly the pattern. Downwind, base, final. Somewhere in the turn to final, you think about your father. The morning he drove you to the bus station, how he didn't say much, how he didn't look back when he walked to the car. You didn't understand that then. At 3,000 feet, alone for the first time, you begin to. The landing is not perfect. It is good enough. You roll out, taxi back, shut down. Yashili is standing on the tarmac. She looks at her watch, then at you. On time, she says. That's all. You don't know yet what she means. You write it in your logbook that night exactly as she said it. 3 words. You will not understand them for 16 years. Instrument training. You fly under the hood. A visor cutting off all outside reference. Your inner ear tells you level. The instruments say descending spiral. You believe your ears. Yashili says nothing. She picks up a dry erase marker and writes a number on the inside of the canopy. 2,700. Feet lost in 40 seconds. Without knowing, without feeling it happen. She caps the marker. Doesn't explain. Doesn't need to. In week 7, formation flying. 2 aircraft, wingtip to wingtip, 6 feet of separation at 200 knots. The first time you drift, her voice comes through the radio. Quiet, 1 word. Correction. By the 6th flight, 2 aircraft move like a single thought. Aerobatics, loops, aileron rolls, the split S. Your stomach fights the G-forces for 2 weeks. Then something shifts. In a 4G pull, the world compresses to a point and your fingers begin to open on the stick. Not from fear, from gravity, your body voting to let go. Your mind overruling it. That line between what the body wants and what the pilot decides is the line you will stand on for the rest of your career. You finish top 3rd. Orders. Advanced jet training, T-45C, NAS Kingsville, Texas. Jets. You've learned the 3rd truth. The body remembers gravity. The pilot has to remember something stronger. Wings of gold weigh nothing. You will spend the next decade learning what they actually cost. Your father does the pinning. A former Army Staff Sergeant never flew anything in his life. Hands that built things and fixed things and never once asked for help with either. He takes the wings from the case with both hands. His jaw is set. He is concentrating on the task the way he concentrated on everything. Like the doing of it correctly is the only thing that matters. You let him have the moment. You don't say anything. Neither does he. First Fleet Assignment, VFA 147, The Argonauts, F/A-18E Super Hornet, NAS Lemoore, California. You are a nugget, first tour pilot, all potential, no proof. The squadron knows it, you know it. The aircraft knows it in the way machines know things, through how they respond to uncertain hands. The Super Hornet is not the T-45, it is heavier and faster, and it communicates its displeasure in ways that are very difficult to misread and very easy to not survive. On your first fleet sortie, you push through 600 knots in a shallow dive and feel the airframe shudder with stored energy, and understand for the first time that you are not flying a trainer anymore. You are flying a weapon. The distinction matters. 2 weeks in, you pass Delacroix in the hallway outside the squadron spaces. He is not in a flight suit. He is carrying a clipboard headed toward the administrative offices. He sees your wings of gold. You see him see them. Neither of you speaks. He nods once, barely, and keeps walking. That is the answer to the question from Pensacola. Finish first or finish correct. The hallway is the answer. You file it and move on. Carrier qualification. USS Carl Vinson CVN-70 off the California coast. From altitude, the ship is a geometry problem. A rectangle of steel, roughly 500 feet of usable deck, moving at 30 knots into the wind. The arresting wire sits 3 inches above the surface. You come in at 150 knots at full military power because if you miss the wire, you need the engine to fly you off the angled deck and bring you around again. You do not land on a carrier. You fly into it and hope the wire agrees with your approach. First pass, too high, wave off from the LSO. Second pass, the wire catches you. Deceleration that has no analogy in ordinary life. 150 miles per hour to 0 in 2 seconds. Everything in the cockpit lurches forward. The ocean is 60 feet below the edge of the deck. You sit for a moment before the deck crew signals you forward. 4 seconds. Nobody sees your hands. You don't let them. You do it 6 more times. By the last trap, your hands are steady. Not because it stopped being dangerous. Because you stopped negotiating with the danger. Night qualification follows. The daytime carrier is difficult. The nighttime carrier is a different problem entirely. There is no horizon, no ambient light off the water. Just a black void with a small cluster of deck lighting at the center of it. And the meatball, the optical landing system, your only reference for the last 18 seconds of every approach. Your first night trap, somewhere on the 180, you realize you have stopped breathing. Not forgotten. Stopped. Your body made a decision without consulting you, redirecting every resource toward the meatball, toward the wire, toward the deck. You breathe again when the wire catches. You don't know how long you weren't. In the debrief, after your first joint exercise, 90 minutes, every decision reconstructed out loud. You find 3 moments where you were a beat slow. You mark them. You don't explain them. You move on. You've learned the 4th truth. The debrief is not punishment. It is the only honest mirror this world offers. You either look into it or you don't improve. You are 29. You have not slept more than 5 consecutive hours in 11 days. You are about to make a decision that affects 17 other people's safety. This is Tuesday. Operations Officer VFA 147. You plan the strike packages. You assign the jets. You manage the flight schedule for 24 officers and 45 enlisted maintainers. Between your own flights, you are in rooms making decisions that affect other people's flying, other people's risk, other people's lives. The weight of that does not announce itself. It accumulates. You notice it one morning when you realize you checked the maintenance log before you checked anything else. Before coffee, before the news, the maintenance log. That is when you know the job has changed you in ways you didn't vote for. Ensign Marov is struggling with instrument approaches. Technically clean, wrong in the air. There is a difference, and it is the kind of difference that does not show up in the grade book, and does show up in the accident report. You don't assign him to the squadron's senior IP. You fly with him yourself. 1 sortie, night, no explanation given. 40 minutes under the hood. You say almost nothing. On the way back to the ship, you ask him one question. What are you afraid of up there? He doesn't answer right away. The radio stays quiet for a long time. That silence is the most important part of the conversation. Nobody had asked him that before. Not in those words, not directly. 3 weeks later, he passes his check ride. He comes to find you afterward. You nod once, the same nod Yashili gave you at Whiting Field. You understand now what that nod means. It means this was always in you. I just waited. Midnight. A hydraulic fault grounds one of your jets 4 hours before a scheduled sortie. You go to the maintenance bay. Senior Chief Villanueva is already there. 17 years of avionics knowledge laid out across a workbench and the floor. You lie down under the aircraft together. His flashlight, your eyes. At 0230, he stops moving and points to a single spot with the tip of a screwdriver. You look. You see nothing. He moves the light closer. A crack. The width of a human hair, running along a line fitting in the hydraulic system. If that fitting had failed at altitude, at speed, over water, the sortie would have become something else entirely, something with a different kind of debrief. You replace the fitting, the aircraft is back in service by 0400. The mission launches on time. Villanueva says nothing when you thank him. He is already looking at the next aircraft. You file that away too. You've learned the 5th truth. Leadership is not knowing where the ceiling is. It is knowing exactly how far below it you are at all times. Every problem problem in the squadron lands on your desk before it reaches the CO. You are the wall. Most days, being the wall means absorbing things that have no good answer. You learn to be comfortable with that. Comfort is the wrong word. You learn to function inside it. XO VFA 25, the Fist of the Fleet. Your skipper is Commander Okonkwo, deliberate, precise, a man who communicates mostly in silences that mean different things depending on which way he is looking when he produces them. It takes you 4 months to learn the vocabulary. After that, you stop needing the words. Lieutenant Commander Ferrer has 6 deployments and an air medal. He misses a mandatory ground training event. The official reason submitted is a family matter. After 3 days of quiet conversation, the real reason surfaces. He forgot he is not careless. He is a man who has been flying and deploying and performing at a level that left no margin for the administrative layer underneath it. He forgot because he was full of other things. You don't call him into your office. You find him outside the squadron spaces one morning before anyone else arrives. You stand next to him. You don't sit him down. No desk between you, no rank on display. You watch him for a moment. He already knows why you're there. The fact that he's been waiting for you, that he's been standing outside for 10 minutes before you arrived, tells you everything about what kind of officer he actually is. You say, paperwork is how the Navy tracks you. Right now, it has the wrong information. We fix that, then we move forward. He never misses another event. 3 months before your tour ends, Lieutenant Cabrini experiences a dual-engine compressor stall at low altitude over the Pacific. He executes the correct recovery and lands safely. You're in the operations center when the call comes in. Cabrini is down. Your chest stops. He's okay. He's on deck. You breathe one breath, then you set the relief aside because the work begins now. 120 pages. Every second of that sortie reconstructed from cockpit voice recorder, radar data, and maintenance logs. You write it as though Cabrini did not walk away because the next pilot in the same situation may not. The finding: a fuel contamination event traced to a maintenance step performed out of sequence. A procedural gap in the checklist. Undetected for 4 years across multiple aircraft. You rewrite the checklist. Naval Aviation Safety Command adopts it fleet-wide within 6 months. Okonkwo finds you before you depart. He says 4 words. You think like a CO. You've learned the 6th truth. The rank expires. The checklist you rewrote will outlive your name on the door. The Black Aces were founded in 1945. Every skipper before you added something to what it means to wear that patch. You are next. You don't know yet what you will add. That will take the entire tour to find out. Skipper VFA 41. Deployment aboard USS Nimitz, CVN 68, Western Pacific through the Strait of Malacca into the Indian Ocean. 6 months, 3,000 flight hours generated, 167 night carrier landings across the squadron. The weight of that history sits in the room every time you call a brief. You feel it. You don't mention it. Mentioning it would make it smaller. Mid-deployment, Lieutenant Thornton waves himself off on final approach without clearance from the LSO. He breaks the approach without a radio call and climbs away. It is the kind of decision that ends careers. It is also the kind of decision that comes from somewhere specific, and you want to know where. You don't call him in that night, you wait. 24 hours later, you find him in the maintenance bay, doing a pre-flight on his aircraft before the next cycle. You walk over. No office, no desk, no PLAT footage on a screen between you. Just 2 people standing next to a jet. You say, "Tell me what happened yesterday." He starts with the technical explanation. You let him finish it. Then you wait. The bay is loud with the sound of other work happening around you. Nobody is listening. That matters. It takes 20 minutes before he gets to the real answer. 12 days of high-tempo operations. Cumulative fatigue that had been building past the point where his instrument scan was reliable, and he hadn't recognized it because fatigue is the one thing that impairs your ability to assess your own impairment. You adjust the flight schedule that afternoon. No announcement, no memo. Just a change in the rotation that gives Thornton and 2 others more recovery time between cycles. 3 days later, he flies again. Clean trap. You are on the deck when he taxes clear. You don't make a show of it. Your XO mentions afterward that the previous skipper would have grounded Thornton formally for 2 weeks. You say, that might have ended a career worth saving. Every pilot in this squadron is watching how we handle this. Not what we say about it. How we handle it. Word moves through a carrier air wing the way it moves through any small community, completely, quickly, and with more accuracy than official channels. They know you went to the maintenance bay. They know you stood next to him. They know he's flying. That matters more than any speech you could give. The standard you enforce with judgment rather than reflex is the standard that actually holds. Standing on the deck one evening, watching the recovery, you see Thornton's aircraft turn final. Clean approach. The wire catches. You think of Yashili, the way she looked at her watch instead of at you. On time. You didn't understand it then. You are beginning to now. She wasn't grading the landing. She was grading what you did with the moment when the moment was entirely yours. You've learned the seventh truth. Command is not a title. It is the moment you stop asking permission to be responsible. 9 squadrons, 70 aircraft, 90 pilots, 500 aircrew and support personnel. You are responsible for all of it, and none of it is yours. Commander, Carrier Air Wing 11, CVW-11, embarked aboard USS Ronald Reagan, CVN-76, forward deployed to Yokosuka, Japan. The title traces back to World War II. The abbreviation stuck, so did the standard it carries, whether you asked for it or not, and you still fly. A CAG who stops flying loses something that cannot be recovered through rank or reputation. But the stick is no longer your primary instrument. Decision authority at scale is. You move maintenance priorities, you allocate sorties. You evaluate 9 commanding officers who each ran their own squadrons before they answered to you. The work is different now. The consequences are not. A night exercise goes wrong. 2 Super Hornets from different squadrons come with an unsafe separation. No collision, no injuries. Close enough for a formal review, and closer than that to something that cannot be reviewed because there is nobody left to conduct it. You don't call a meeting. The morning after, you go to each CEO individually. The first at 0615 before he has eaten. The second at 0640 on the bridge. Neither knows you spoke to the other. That is deliberate. You want the truth of what happened, not the version that forms when 2 people have had time to align their accounts. Separate conversations, separate truths. Then you build the picture yourself. The cause, incompatible data link configurations between the 2 squadrons never surfaced during pre-mission coordination. Each assumed, neither checked, 9 minutes added to every joint brief going forward. A mandatory air-wing coordination checklist, nobody argues. Not after the night they remember. One evening in your stateroom, you open your logbook on your laptop. 3,400 flight hours, over 900 carrier landings. You scroll back through the entries. T-6Bs over Florida, T-45C over Texas, Super Hornets over the Persian Gulf, the South China Sea, the Indian Ocean. You find the entry from Whiting Field, age 21, solo, 3 words in the notes column. Yashili said, on time. You wrote it exactly as she said it because you didn't understand it well enough to paraphrase it. Now you read it again and something settles. She wasn't commenting on the landing. She was telling you that you had arrived at the right moment, in the right way, without needing to be told what right looked like. You closed the laptop. You prepared tomorrow's brief. You've learned the 8th truth. At scale, your decisions don't show up in your performance review. They show up in other people's survival rates. You are 49. The last time someone raised their voice at you in a professional setting was 1996. Now they ask you questions in suit jackets and you'll have to answer as if the words don't cost anything. Rear Admiral. Lower half. 1 star. You oversee 450 aircraft across Naval Air Force U.S. Pacific Fleet. You no longer wear a flight suit to work. You wear service dress blues and you brief Congress, and you have learned a language that is technically precise and diplomatically careful at the same time. It does not come naturally after 30 years of aviation debrief culture where imprecision is a safety issue. You adapt anyway. Adaptation is the oldest skill you have. Senate Armed Services Committee, Carrier Aviation Readiness, Sustainment Costs, 5th Generation Adversary Proliferation across the Indo-Pacific. The questions range from sharp to political, and all of them require an answer that is accurate, unlikely to be misquoted, and unlikely to generate a headline that costs someone something they cannot recover. One senator asks a question built on a wrong premise. The readiness data he is citing is 18 months old and was superseded by a systemic review that changed 3 of its core conclusions. You have 2 choices. Answer the question as asked and let the wrong premise live in the congressional record. Or correct the premise, lose 90 seconds of your allotted time, and make an enemy of a man who chairs a subcommittee you will need next appropriations cycle. You stop. 3 seconds on an open microphone in a Senate hearing room is a long time. time. The room notices. You correct the premise. All 90 seconds, the record is accurate. The senator is not pleased. You have been not pleased with before. You know what it costs and what it doesn't. You fly once a month now. A T-45C instructor in the back seat, currency maintained. The flights are not tactical. They are necessary in a different way. After every flight, the LSO grades you. You read the grade sheet before you open any briefing folder. Not because the grade matters to your career, because it is the one document in your life that contains no diplomatic filter. The meatball does not know your rank. It does not adjust its position based on your title. That is what you need to remember. That is why you keep flying. The habit of accepting the grade honestly, of reading it without flinching, was installed at Whiting Field by a woman who had no patience for excuses. It never left. Nothing that is real ever does. You've learned the ninth truth. Power is easy to acquire. The hard part is keeping it from changing the questions you're willing to ask. You are standing in front of an aircraft that killed men younger than you are now. That is the first thing you see, not the wings, not the history, the age. National Museum of Naval Aviation, Pensacola, Florida. The same city where you first flew. The museum holds a century of naval aviation in one building, and you have walked past most of it without stopping. Then you reach the F-4 Phantom, Vietnam era. The cockpit is smaller than you remembered from the books. No digital displays, no FLIR, no data link, analog gauges, and a pilot making decisions at 15,000 feet with the information available to him and nothing else. The distance between that cockpit and yours is measured in technology. The distance in what the job demanded of a person is not nearly as large as the technology suggests. You stand there longer than you planned. The ceremony begins. Your retirement speech is short. You talk about the people. Kellerman at Great Lakes. Yashili at Whiting Field. Villanueva in the maintenance bay at Lemoore. Okonkwo in the skipper's chair. You don't talk about aircraft. You don't talk about the Distinguished Flying Cross, awarded for leading a strike package in the South China Sea when 2 of your 4 wingmen experienced sensor failures mid-mission and you continued to execution on manual targeting. You talk about who shaped you and what you tried to carry forward and whether you carried it far enough. At the end, a young ensign fresh from OCS reads your citation. Voice steady, pace correct. When she finishes, you look at her for a moment and think. She has no idea yet what is coming. You hope it is everything that came for you. You hope it is harder. Then Yashili is in front of you. She retired years ago, lives in Savannah now. You didn't ask her to come. She came anyway. She looks the same way she always looked, like she is running a calculation, and the answer is already known, and the question is whether you know it too. She takes your hand, says nothing for a moment, then she says 2 words. On time. No explanation, none needed. 35 years collapsed into 8 letters. She was never grading the landing. She was never commenting on the approach. She was telling a 21-year-old pilot something he would not be ready to hear for decades. That arriving at the right moment, prepared, clear, without needing to be told what right looks like, that is the whole job. That was always the whole job. 2 months later, the Naval War College offers you a visiting professor position. You accept. First day in the classroom, you walk in and look at the room. Lieutenant commanders, officers who will be standing where you stood in 15 years. You don't go to the front, you pull a chair from the nearest desk and sit down among them. Same level, same room, 10 seconds of silence, then you ask one question. What decision are you most afraid of making? Nobody answers immediately. You wait. You have learned how to wait. The question sits in the room and does its work and you let it. This is the lesson, not the answer. The willingness to sit inside the question until the question teaches you something the answer never could. You still wake at 0500. You run alone now. No formation, no cadence called by anyone but the road. The habit never left. Nothing that is real ever does. You've learned the final truth. You spent 38 years learning how to fly. That was never the curriculum. The curriculum was what happened every time you nearly didn't make it back and then had to brief the next morning anyway.